Hey everybody, Heather from New Zealand here. Today is confession time. I've been doing the Flylady System now for 2 years. 2 years. And I have, sometimes I do great, sometimes I do terrible, but one thing is consistent, I keep failing. I keep getting it all set up, I keep getting all my habits into place, and then life happens and it all turns to custard. So that's where I'm at today. I'm sitting here in a lounge. It's a beautiful sunny day. The sun's shining in. I've the kids at school, hubby's at work. The house is quiet. It's a mess, but it's quiet. So I am doing what I often do when things kind of get all wobbly and life isn't where I want it to be. I sit down and have a cup of tea. So that's what I'm doing today. And I'm taking some time to reflect on how this is happening, why it's happening, regrouping really. I feel like I need to regroup, start again, and learn from the situation as it's happened. So I thought I'd share that process with you today. I'm guessing, I'm not guessing, I know that many of you out there will go through exactly the same thing that I'm going through. Because life is messy, things don't go to plan, and that's okay, but it can be really frustrating. So, what can we do when life turns to custard and we need to start again? Where do we start and how do we pick ourselves up? Those are the thoughts that are running through my mind. Our first reaction, or I should own this, my first reaction is usually to get down on myself. To say that I have failed, I have done it wrong, my mind starts spinning into a real negative space about myself. When really all that's happened is that there's been different pressures, there's been something else going on that's meant that it's been much harder to achieve those things I wanted to achieve. I mean, for example, what's happened for me, what's changed and put extra pressure on is extra demands from work. I'm working more hours and I'm at the end of the day I'm more tired, so my evening habits haven't been as easy to achieve and accomplish. So you can get into a very negative space, and we need to put the brakes on that to realise that we all go through times when things happen that mean that our plans or our routines or our schedules are not going to be perfect. They're not going to be exactly the way we want them to be. And that's another thing that we do to ourselves, is we consider that there are two options. One option is that everything is perfect, everything is done the way we want it to, and we look like something off a Disney movie. You know, the house is all clean, everything's fabulous, everything's wonderful. So there's that extreme, or we consider ourselves the other extreme, and that is that we're total failures, totally useless, and not able to do anything. So the first thing I'm going to do is back the bus up and say, okay, something's happened, as things are happening all the time in life. It could be a work-related issue like it is for me at the moment. It could be you've moved house. It could be a health issue. It could be stress-related from the COVID-19 situation we all find ourselves in. There are so many different things that can come along that can make it difficult for us to achieve the things that we had planned to achieve on a consistent basis. So, first of all, let's take the pressure off ourselves. We don't have to be perfect. In fact, in the history of the world, there's only been one person who was perfect, and newsflash, it's not me, and it's not you. So, let's throw perfection out the window and realise that none of us are perfect, and nobody actually does anything perfect anyway. So, why do we beat ourselves up? Let's stop doing that. The next step I think we need to take with our minds and our attitudes before we start getting into actually doing something to change our situation is I think we need to look at some self-forgiveness, because we are so hard on ourselves. I'm incredibly hard on myself. I think I'm harder on myself than I am on anybody else, which just is downright unfair and unrealistic. So let's look at forgiving ourselves. What does that mean? That means refusing to hold ill will against ourselves for not meeting an imaginary, unrealistic expectation that we had of ourselves. We're human. We make mistakes. Life happens, and we are where we are. Okay, we don't get upset with a toddler who's learning to walk because they keep falling over. That is the process of learning to walk. The process of moving through life and getting better at things and learning new skills involves a lot of falling over. And so when you do fall over, as I have fallen over at the moment, think of yourself as that toddler. Okay, I've fallen over. That's okay. It's part of the process. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I'm not going to hold any ill will or tell myself how awful I am because I've just part of a process that everybody goes through. Okay, so please practice some self-forgiveness before you move on to getting into action. So what action plan am I going to take? I kind of feel like I'm at ground zero. So any move from here is going to be an improvement. So the Flylady always recommends at the beginning of the baby steps that you start by shining your sink. So that seems like a good place for me to start with starting the getting back on track with the Flylady system, because it's a great place to start. I think really in a way it doesn't matter where you start, but why waste time trying to decide where to start? Why not just take her suggestion and go with that? No point in reinventing the wheel. The Flylady system is thought out so well that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So let's just start there. I'm going to shine my sink. I'm also going to jump to another of the baby steps, out of order, and that is the 15 minutes for myself. I can't remember offhand which step that was, but taking 15 minutes with a timer to do something just for you. Not something you have to do, but something you would like to do, that you enjoy doing and that nurtures you. So I'm going to take those two steps and I'm going to put them as a priority. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for some help. I'm not the only one who lives in this house. I'm not the only one who creates the mess and disorder, who creates dirty laundry, things like that. So I'm going to ask for some help. That being said, I don't want to overload the rest of the family with our free time being taken up with housework. So what I'm going to do is this weekend I'm going to ask for help with the jobs that I haven't been able to get to. Not the routine jobs, but like the once a week jobs or the zone jobs that I haven't got to during the week. Again, if you're not familiar with the Flylady system, I've got videos that I'll link at the end that'll tell you all about this. So I'm going to shine my sink. I'm going to take 15 minutes for myself. I'm going to ask for some help. I don't have to be the Lone Ranger here. In fact, didn't the Lone Ranger have Tonto? So even he wasn't doing it all by himself. So there's some things that I can start the ball rolling in the other direction. One thing I've found, like I said, I've been doing this Flylady for quite some time. I've found whenever it all turns to custard, number one, it gets back on track quicker each time. Because I've learnt something in the process. And number two, I found that these times are really good opportunities to work those areas where I may not have noticed that I'm not doing things properly. I mean, in the teaching world, if you have a new student and you, for maths, say, and you want to find out where they're up to in their maths, you give them a maths test. Now, ideally, you give them a maths test that starts easy and slowly during the test gets harder and harder. And you're not expecting the child to pass this test. What you're looking for is the holes in their learning and their understanding so you're able to teach them better. Well, I kind of feel like these blowouts that I have, they're like those maths tests. They have within them the opportunity for me to see where my holes are, where my habits are working against me, what areas I find harder. So I'm going to take some more time reflecting on that and just noticing where I fell over and how I can make that area of my life a little bit easier. So even though that these times can be difficult, there's a lot of value in there to be had, and we can grow and we can learn. And I find that each time I go through this process, I actually do it a bit better. So although it feels like I'm at ground zero, that's an over-exaggeration. I'm not really. Each time it happens, I learn a bit more, learn a bit more, learn a bit more. So that's got to be good news, right? What's number 2?